Mary Beth Kane watched Audra with a smile. "Sit down and rest. You're spinning like a whirligig. You won't get any strength." Audra laughed. "Come on, Grandma Mary Beth. Nothing will happen to me." Youth. I used to be so quick, too." Audra took a seat in the chair beside her grandmother. "And here, this is how old you are." Audra pointed to a large portrait that hung above the bed. Mary Beth looked like a queen in it, though now that she was many years old and barely out of bed, it was safe to say that this woman was not broken by illness or old age. Whenever Audra came in, Mary Beth always had done her hair, always wearing light makeup. "Here, I am 23. I just got married." "You look so beautiful here." "Audra, don't you think there's something similar about you and me?" Audra flashed her eyes cheerfully. "I think so, Mary Beth, but I'm a long way from you." Audra rushed off to the kitchen and clinked the dishes there, then looked in on her. "Mary Beth, I'm off. Soup's on the stove. Cutlets need to be put in the fridge when they get cold. Can you handle it?" "Sure, Audra. Run along." The front door slammed, and the woman closed her eyes. "I can have a little nap, because the letter carrier is due in the afternoon, and I'll have to listen to her raptures for an hour." And Mary Beth knows that the letter carrier does not say a single word, but she listens, or she will die of boredom. Then a little more time, and she can be distracted by the show, and then it's nighttime. True, if she could still sleep during the day, she had trouble sleeping at night, but she was used to it. Mary Beth Kane was not only disliked in the village, she was feared, and rumors about her varied, and that she was friends with evil spirits, and that she had brought her husband to his grave. The older women used to threaten to punch her when they passed by her home, because everyone remembered how Mary Beth, when she was younger, used to steal any man from the family with a flick of her finger. And she did not take him to live with him, but to annoy the others. She despised the country women who milked cows and fertilized the earth with manure and forgot to look after themselves. And Mary Beth never hid it. They say she had a son, but what do they say? She did. Someone even remembered him, except that no one really knew whether she had thrown him out or whether he had run away from her, and the assumptions were more scary than the others. Her arrogance, good financial standing, beauty, and the fact that Mary Beth Kane had never cared about the opinions of others had long ago created a vacuum around her. People shunned her, and she herself made no attempt to get close to anyone, not even friends, always alone. In the village, even after Mary Beth had grown old, her opinion of her had not changed. There were a few attempts. Women of the same age came to her to sit and chat, but they were immediately thrown out of the door. Mary Beth heard the front door close. "Mary Beth, are you home?" "Home. Come in," as if I could run away. Verity's mailman walked into the room. "Hello." "Hello, sit down." Verity dropped her heavy bag and began to rummage through it, at the same time telling the village news. Your daughter Vanessa in the city was taken away. The daughter came, packed a suitcase, and commanded. She cried and kissed the ground goodbye, but she had no choice. Vanessa is weak now, and her head is failing. She almost burned the house down a week ago. Well, if she had, no one would have noticed. We're at an age now where we're no good to anyone, and my daughter wouldn't have to suffer. You shouldn't do that, Mary Beth. Her daughter's a good girl. She worries about her mother. They all do, as long as they have to. Mary Beth muttered to herself with the last words. Well, here's another money order for you. And who is sending you that kind of money? Whoever's sending it is sending it. And you'd better bite your tongue, Verity. Verity took offense. Why do you say that? Have I said anything bad to anyone in all these years? Mary Beth herself knew that she had undeservedly offended her, so she said conciliatorily, Well, I'm sorry. Verity left, and Mary Beth struggled to get up to stash the money in the trunk at the very bottom. There was already a very impressive stack of cash there. Then she sat down, looking at her portrait, and pulled her notebook toward her. Tonight, she had a dream about her husband telling her to get ready. What she got to get ready for? All she had to do was repent and ask forgiveness. Audra tightly sat down right by the gate. This bench still she and her grandmother made, and he's been gone for 4 years. Her mother had died when she was 15. She remembered her grandmother poorly, and her father had never been there. Or rather, he was, of course, without him. She wouldn't have made it. But everyone acted as if he had never existed. Audra was so eager to study, to get an education, but there was no way she could leave her grandfather alone, especially since he got much worse after the death of her only daughter. and there was no work in the village except on the farm. So Audra did not hesitate to go to work there. And then, after the death of her grandfather, she realized one simple thing. In this world, she is completely alone. No one to help her, listen to her too. Something to change just impossible. Because the salary is such that it is not possible to save. And to study, to go to the city, you need money. She did not know whether she would be able to change anything in her life, but she realized that is unlikely. Lately, she had become very good friends with Mary Beth Kane. Her family didn't like the woman much either, but Audra was drawn to her like a magnet. It was as if Mary Beth was from another life, one that Audra probably couldn't get into at all. She decided that she needed to stop by Mary Beth's house for a minute, just to ask how she was doing and see if she had put the cutlets in the refrigerator. Mary Beth? There was silence in response. Audra called to her mistress again and slowly, on tiptoe, went to her room. The old woman lay flat, too flat, and proper for a living person. Audra cried. How are you? How am I now? There was money left on the table for the funeral, and there was a notarized document. It stated that she would bequeath the house and all her belongings to Audra. It was only a month after the funeral that Audra could push herself to go through her grandmother's things. The first thing she did was drag the trunk into the middle of the room. Mary Beth always laughed, saying that his trunk held all her secrets. On top were pictures, lots of pictures. Audra didn't realize who was there, though she put a few pictures aside. There was a young Mary Beth there, interestingly, only a young one. Mary Beth didn't like to be photographed in her old age, saying, "Nobody wants old ladies, so there's nothing to scare people either." And then she got a thick package, a letter or something, and Audra wanted to put it away for later. But then she saw the inscription on the package, "For Audra." Her heart raced. She opened the package, and several pictures fell in her lap. Audra was staring wide-eyed at her young mother and some young handsome man with whom her mother was standing in her arms. The girl unwrapped the letter with trembling hands. "If you, dear Audra, are reading this letter, then I am gone. I don't know if you will ever forgive me. I broke everyone's life. Your mother, you, my son, and myself too. Well, first things first. Years ago, my son Damien fell in love with your mother. I had very different plans for my son. He passed his final exams perfectly, got into university with ease, and then he was invited to intern abroad. And then some milkmaid decided to cross me in my son's career. I did everything I could to keep them apart. Damon has told so many things, or rather lied about your mother, that he packed up and left in one day. And then your mother went to town and came back with you. I couldn't understand at first why I liked looking at you so much. Only then I realized, you look like me. I mean, you're Damien's daughter. When your mother was gone, I told my son everything. He didn't talk to me much anyway, and after I told him everything, he stopped sending me money. But I got cold feet. I told him about my mother, but nothing about you. Here is his address and phone number. Call him and let him read this letter. I don't know if your relationship will work out or not, but at the bottom of this trunk is the money Damien sent. I didn't spend anything from there because I think it's your money. You can finally go to school. Forgive me, granddaughter. Forgive me, Damien." Audra let the letter out of her hands, sat for a long time, staring at one point in front of her. Then she took the pictures. Mom was so happy, and so was this young man. What was it all about? Why? For days she gathered her thoughts. Mary Beth's son was not remembered in the village, and no one knew where to tell him that his mother had died. Finally, Audra gathered her thoughts. She dialed the phone number that was in the paper. "Hello?" The man's commanding voice startled her. "Hello, this is Audra. I'm calling to inform you that Mary Beth Kane died a month ago." There was silence on the phone. Then the voice said, "I'm coming over today. Who are you? How can I find you? I'll wait for you at Mary Beth's house." Audra couldn't tell she was his daughter. And then, who said he even needed or was interested in her? Damien turned out to be a tall man in an expensive suit in a nice car. Audra was completely embarrassed. "Who are you, Audra?" "Yes, I was helping Mary Beth. She's been sick for a long time." He strode across the room, stopping at the portrait of his mother. Audra approached. "Here, this letter and the pictures Mary Beth left me. It says here for you to read too." Damien just started to read and immediately raised his astonished eyes to Audra, but remained silent, leaned over the letter again, finished reading. He sat silent for a while, then slammed his fist on the table with all his might. Mom. Audra looked at him frightened, then quickly said, "You don't think anything wrong. I don't need anything. I have everything." He looked at her incomprehensibly, then smiled weakly. "Honestly, I don't know how to behave. I've never had children. I never got married, and now I have a grown daughter. It's so unusual." Audra was somehow relieved at once. She smiled. "I never had a father either, but I don't break the table." Damien laughed. "Can we go to the cemetery? Mary Beth really messed up a lot of people's lives, but she was my mother after all." The villagers who came across them greeted them in amazement and looked them over. Only a blind man could fail to notice the resemblance between Damien and Audra. By nightfall, everyone in the village knew that Mary Beth's son had arrived, and Audra, who was looking after his mother, looked a lot like him. Someone remembered that he seemed to have met Audra's mother. 3 days later, almost the entire village gathered at Mary Beth's house. It was a joke. The orphan girl had found her father, and now he was taking her with him. Audra was embarrassed, stroking the new suit she was wearing. Damien, on the other hand, was smiling at everyone. "What about the house now, Damien?" "Why, the house belongs to my daughter. It's up to her. If she wants it, she'll sell it. If she wants it, she'll come as a country house." Audra blushed. She still felt strange as a daughter, even though they'd become very friendly with Damien over the 3 days. He talked a lot about how they had met her mother, what love they had had. Audra listened to every word. Everything was so beautiful, so interesting. They had already decided which university Audra was going to attend. Damien had called someone and found her a tutor. While the girl was working on the farm, she had forgotten all her school curriculum, and in general, Audra felt her life was changing abruptly. She said goodbye to everyone. Her things were already in the car. "Can I stop by the cemetery to say goodbye to Mom and Grandpa?" Damien walked behind her, and Audra knew exactly how hard it was for him. She talked to her mother for a while and walked away from the grave. Did she think she saw tears in Damien's eyes? "Audra, you go to the car. I'll be right there." The girl saw him walk over to the grave. She managed to hear, "Well, hello. Forgive me. Forgive me for being silly." Damien returned half an hour later. Audra didn't ask anything. She saw that the man's eyes were tearful. He got behind the wheel. "Well, daughter, on to your new life?" Audra smiled back. "Yes, to a new life."